Good morning. Today is August 15th, Policy Committee meeting. I call the meeting to order. All members are here. I need an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Anyone? Jimmy, thank you. Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Where's Gary?
Yeah.
Did I lose Gary? Does anyone see Gary?
He's not on here.
He must have dropped. I'm sure he'll try to come back.
Okay. I need an approval of the open session minutes.
So move.
Second.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
And Gary's having issues with internet. Okay. Next up is policy for second review.
Yes, good morning. The first policy that you have for second review is policy 3-19, which is the administration of medication and/or first aid. This policy was reviewed by the committee back in June because we didn't have a July policy committee meeting. And if you remember, there was one legal change, statutory change that was made. Then it went to the board in July. We've received no stakeholder input. And so staff would request that this policy go for approval at the September 6th meeting.
Okay.
Do you want to do them all together and I'll keep moving?
Sure, that would be good.
Okay. The next policy for second review is policy 5-14, extracurricular activities and interscholastic athletics. This also was reviewed in June by the committee. And if you remember, the proposed change was made by staff to address the UCPS taking middle school sports in-house. Then it went to the board in July, and there's been no stakeholder input since that time, and staff would request that this also go for approval at the September 6th meeting. Okay, the next one is policy 8-02, insurance for student transportation. This policy came to the committee in June, and if you remember, the change was related to statutory changes to address tort coverage. And then it went to the board in July. There's been no stakeholder input since that time, and staff would also request that this one go for approval at the September 6th meeting. All right, finally, your last one for second review is a proposed new policy, technology in the educational program. This one came to the committee in June, and the changes in this policy were to reflect the requirements of the North Carolina Digital Learning Plan. And there was a discussion at the policy committee meeting for the review that's discussed on page 2 to be an annual review. And that revision was made prior to it going to the board in July. There's been no stakeholder input since that time, and staff would request that this policy also go for approval at the September 6th meeting.
So I need a motion to send these policies for second review.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
3-0. Next up is policies for first review.
Okay, the first one is policy 1-16, code of ethics for school board members. And this is part of the regular review. And the revision to this policy is based upon the recommendation from the North Carolina School Board Association model policies. Staff would ask that this go for first review at the September 6th meeting. I don't know if anyone has any questions regarding that revision.
Questions?
No questions.
Okay, good. Okay, does anybody have any questions about 1-16? No. Okay, next is 4-03.
Yes, this is, we've developed a draft administrative guidelines for discipline procedures. These are being proposed to clarify the procedures for imposing the various forms of removals from school for disciplinary reasons. These guidelines have been reviewed and approved by Mr. McGraw, and I believe he is present if there's any questions. And staff would ask that this go for review at the September 6th meeting.
I have a question.
And I have one next, Madam Chair.
Oh, you can go first.
No, go ahead. I can wait.
Okay, expulsion, 14 and older, is that statutory?
That is, you cannot expel anyone younger than the age of 14 under North Carolina law.
I'm gonna say that again.
The minimum age to expel a child under North Carolina law is 14. And that's basically the complete cessation of educational services. Unless they're special education, then you have to provide services to meet their goals and objectives. But other than that,
Okay,
that's the minimum age.
I like the step-by-step thing. Yes,
Thank you.
in the AG. Anybody have any questions?
Mr. McGraw, this policy, is there any thing in this policy that someone can misconstrue, that one principal will do, have his school doing one thing, another principal will have her school doing one thing? Is there any ambiguity in there? Because we want to make sure that we are universal in our dissemination of proper punishment.
Reverend mentioned this provides for clarity and consistency across the board. It is needed. So this document does exactly what we needed to do for our disciplinary practices, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. McGraw,
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Let's say my son gets suspended from school. What is that? And again, I apologize. I want to look at it more in detail. I'm glad this is first review, but if you could just kind of help me understand a little bit more, even if I didn't read this. If I get suspended today from school, who calls the parent?
So
Is there a call? Tell me how that process works.
So, you know, first of all, Reverend Kirkpatrick, we always give our students their due process. That's the main thing. We want to make sure we follow the law. The second thing, we would follow Board of Education policy on disciplinary consequences. And then once we get to the point where we're imposing discipline, the school administrator, either the principal or the AP, would be the person who would call the parent first.
Okay. So once the kid is suspended, do we have any resources or services that the AP could refer to the parent? Because 9 times out of 10, when a kid gets suspended from school, it's something dealing with behavior, character, some areas that need to be improved. But are there programs that we can provide, because that kid is being suspended, they're home, they're not doing anything? Are they required to do their work? I mean, I know you can't make them, but they're okay.
Yes, we would still want them to do their academic work at home. Our counselors are engaged with students when they're suspended.
Okay.
If it's a short-term suspension, we're not just putting them out there by themselves. We make sure that we provide them with the resources necessary to continue with their academic success. Now, if we get into long-term suspensions, that gets into something more. But for a short-term suspension, we do provide them with support from the school level itself.
Okay. All right. I don't have any more questions. Thank you, Mr. McGraw.
Thank you, Reverend Kirkpatrick.
Okay, next is policy 4-13.
Okay, I'll mute myself. All right, 4-13, student assignment. The revisions in this policy were requested by staff to clarify the sibling preference regarding DLI. In speaking to Ms. Garner, the concern was that parents were not entering the DLI lottery, and so they could get that preference, and it was hard to determine how many spaces were available because those students weren't entering the lottery. So it clarifies that you're entitled to that placement, but you have to go through the lottery. This policy has been reviewed by members of the academic division as well as the director of student assignment, and we would request that this go for first review at the September meeting.
Any questions? Nope. Okay, so I need a motion to send the policies for first review.
We have one more administrative guideline, if I can just run through
Oh,
that
I'm
real
sorry.
quick. No, that's okay, because it's it's the administrative guideline to 413. And similar to above, the guidelines, the changes were requested by staff to address new lottery programs such as ag tech and sustainable energy, and the DLI matriculation from elementary to middle, which will now clarify that beginning with, I think it's the kindergarten class of 20 that starts next fall, that they will matriculate to their home middle school and not go to the middle school that's attached to the elementary that they may be in now, because by then all of our middle schools will have the appropriate programming. And so this has also been reviewed by members of the academic division and the director of student assignment, and would request that this go for review in September as well.
Any questions?
Can we go back on this policy if for some reason shortage of available staff, we don't have it in all our middle schools?
Yes,
Just
if there
waive
becomes an
the policy
issue.
at that time?
Yeah, I think in this administrative grounds, we also deleted the issue that addressed when we had a lack of staffing for some of our elementary programs. We would do a similar revision at that point to this as well.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that these policies be submitted to the board for first review.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Our next meeting is September 19th at 8 a.m. via Zoom. I need a motion to adjourn.
So
So
move.
moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.